take damage during the time, but look, and then at that point, it could be extremely detrimental. You don't want to go down during that time, but hey, if you're down, Taco Time can actually save you if you're on the other side, so pros and cons.
One big thing about early and mid-game fights is utilizing down players as
turn that into a winning situation for you, because one of the cons of going on offense is you expose yourself. You're out there, you're vulnerable, you're moving, you're typically not building, and in those situations, that's where you get traded shots. But here, we're looking at Retail Row. This is what we wanted to focus on. NM7, FHD, and Young specifically have been hitting some disgusting shots over the course of today. The heavy sniper we know to be a favorite.
Use that shock. You miss with a heavy snipe, depending on your heavy ammo count, which gets found in much bigger, varieties of 7, 13 ammo spread around the map. You have so many more opportunities to land that heavy sniper throughout any point in the game. It's more expendable, which means you can play off of it so much more frequently.
That's right, and just taking a look here, Yonks is going to get a nice little power upgrade to the loadout there as he picks up a blue pump shotgun. So you know the confidence is in their favor. They're actually glancing over at the Black Ops. They're not quite sure. They saw a little bit of aggro zombie movement, from the Fiends here, kind of lingering about, and because of that, they were cautious. They knew a team was here when we first checked in with them. Seems like the coast is pretty clear, and now they're gonna focus on taking out the pylons here.
Yeah, one thing I actually wanted to talk about, we noticed Retail and Greasy coming in, right? We also made that little mistake with the houses. The big thing, though, to note about that, a lot of these house layouts are very similar when you're looking at it inside. And with new POIs, suppose you are a team that goes Retail, and it's so contested. Moving over to Greasy and having that similar layout, knowing exactly how to play those buildings, and as well looking at what are the power buildings in the POI. How does that kind of change the way you adapt to it versus a team that's not their monster?
I mean, you absolutely need to know your layout. It's one of the perks of mastering a place and playing off a place for long periods of time. Now, let's just say if things were to just change and something new is to show up, that could be a big issue for some of the competitors. But hey, the best of the best adapt, and someone's going to figure out how to make it work, right?
Absolutely. You get the experience of playing in Retail, apply it to Greasy. You might just get a whole new drop spot, right? Yeah, there's Taco Time. Hey, that's free shields. That's, as you said, the free utilization of having a knockdown teammate just staying alive. It's huge things you can play off of. We're going to be looking at a Polar Peak team right now. Also a very interesting POI that's been developed kind of in the metagame over this whole season. In the beginning, not many people wanted to land here, not seeing the actual potential of loot, as we did lose the big castle, but gained so much more map space and movement vertically around the map and actual sight lines towards Frosty, towards the cabins at the back, and even Happy Hamlet takes shots at people who are up here from Polar.
Yeah, Polar Peak has always been one of those power spots to hold. I nerd out over specifically is rotations, figuring out how people play their drop spots and figure out their loot situations. Something cool to note, guys, you actually don't take fall damage if you were to fall off a high place with the hoverboard.
You've got all the factoids down, man. These guys.
I play a lot of
tips. Let's go, Monster.
Just something to think about. So don't panic, guys. If you ever want to really make an aggressive dive and push, it's actually a perfect opener to come in on the hoverboard. You are exposed, but you can jump off at any elevation, any height. And if you fail, it's okay. You'll be all right.
That's one thing you also. One thing you also pointed out on, it's actually Heat 1 Game 4 from the Middle East at the moment, which is a whole new slew of players that we're going to be seeing, because we were watching Heat 2 previously, so we'll see how this Heat panned out, how the end games kind of differ. Before, we saw a lot of top-down shooting vertically, not many people challenging it late at all, a lot of miniguns, a lot of AR spam. Once that 7th zone kind of passed, it was free reign for those people on height. It's just about how many points can you efficiently accumulate. So now we'll see what are some of the other different type of win conditions, endgame Monster, that you've seen in Comp Fortnite.
Hey, I mean, the name of the game is to earn points regardless. You see squads that like to execute Zone 6 for high ground and then dominate, right? Put pressure down, dictate the pace of the game. You see other players that tend to kind of hold mid-ground tarp, hold down on shockwaves, and then make big moves towards the tail end, try and secure high ground, right? All of which are risk and reward plays. Personally, I think the scariest type of play style is going for height early. Those players that have the guts to go for Zone 6 high ground, you're risking all of your material at the expense of going for elims, which aren't guaranteed to you, and then you're trying to control the pace of the battle, which, again, some people struggle, right, in those situations, because if you don't do it properly, the server will turn on you, and now all of a sudden you're losing.
Yep, there's so many teams alive near the end of the game. There's always one that can sense the weakness on height.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're not double tarping anymore. Your metal switched to wood. Here's an opportunity. Where's the spam?
You're not hitting me. So
Yeah.
like, now it's time to fire back and set up those countermeasures. And that's one of the kind of tug of wars that these teams and trios face. But here we have Sidig, MS, Idij, and Rampage here, and looks like they are looking to battle here. So the team that we saw at Greasy here was already rotating out, and in comes the fire. So just exposing themselves, no fear at all, just fearless out in the open, using a little bit of ducking there, kind of trying to naturally avoid some shots here. The shield bubble comes down. Invoke is on a weird position here. And up he goes for the high ground right now, and that's a shockwave. He's going to leave his backside open, and he's going to suffer all of his shield right there. It's going to be very painful.
Now, one big thing to notice in this breakdown is on approach, Rampage, Sidig, and M-Sidig all together were doing a 2-1 breakdown at all times. They always made sure there was one person a little bit higher, kind of switching roles to make sure they had that 2-1 split. And you see it in this fight. It's two people on a wall on one opponent. Then you have the breakdown of one person supporting up top. Right now, Rampage is in the big fray of the fight. Not sure exactly where his teammates are, but you can presume if he's on a wall, there is a teammate there to respond. Kimmy responds to the bullets by going absolutely knocked down in that state, and now going to be getting siphoned by his teammates. Now everyone grouping together. This is a very good use of timing in the fight, because when you're split, you do have a lot of pressure, but there's a lot of risk involved. Now coming back together, if someone tries to peek you, you have 3 people aiming in. It's very good use of splits and regrouping.
Yeah, and something to learn from that battle, guys. If you notice how quickly it ended, is because they managed to just isolate. They isolated the player, they hunted him down, they forced him into a frenzy to build up for high ground, and that was the first pick. After that, the rest of the team just kind of fell in suit, trying to play catch-up to save their teammate. But we've seen a wonderful story of Minzu, Kinji, and Boxfighter Moon all day today. They had high ground. They took second place in the first game we watched, in a crazy turnaround of some shockwave plays that were made towards endgame. But we know they've been making it to the end, and they weren't on our radar previous to this. So to see Minzu, Kinji, and Boxfighter Moon here finally making a little stake of the claim for fame here on the Fortnite competitive scene is really nice. This is one of the awesome things about being able to check out these new regions and give people opportunity.
No, absolutely. This is the breakthrough moment at the moment. We've seen them be really good early game in Howard. So now their full body sending it straight into the box fight. As they're doing it, another 2 teams come up from the top. It's a huge mishmash at Grandma's house in the middle of the map. A lot of teams should be rotating through here. They might get even more action as Kinji goes down.
And that's what I want to talk about. It was the aggression, the fearlessness. Moon actually jumps into a 1v3 battle for high ground build. He held it down, but unfortunately Kinji's going to get traded out here as Minzu was in the low ground trying to figure things out. And now suddenly, because they didn't, pull back the reins and play patient here, they found themselves in another battle.
You do have a lot of loot you did gain from the fight that these guys just had, and slurps to tick through, but the stuff you use early to pick yourself up, you will not be able to utilize in the end game. So time is shared across both early and end. It's both affected. We don't usually get to see it used at the end game, but every decision you make, maybe they wouldn't have had that mid-game fight if they were faster off their looting, right? So seeing exactly how they move across the map, how they utilize time, can actually get into where they are in the middle and end game of their gameplay.
Yeah, so they sent one player out to go kind of, obviously get that revive, and then they stood, or they left Moon back behind to, be that presence on the build on this skeleton that remains of what the fight was, so that the team below, is cautious. They don't necessarily, want to move or get that freebie rotation out of there. So the whole team is back. Now they're able to reap some of the rewards here, the loot that remains, and suddenly they're all back in action here. Now, with that launch pad there, they are going to be okay to get the rotation. But remember, he did catch a knock, so notice. They wanted
all of these fights are going down. Players start dropping all over the place. Right now, Adam ZK able to find a number of picks using the minigun and the edits to get pressure, but unfortunately isn't clean enough to pick them up without taking back damage. Now you can see Adam is in shambles, so W Horse is trying to play the protector role, but they're in fights on the back of the storm, and this is where it starts to break down. Despite getting the siphon, everyone on their team needs to now regroup, and boom, we flip back over. W Horse, whole team is eliminated, was able to pick up a number of elims. 5 players left, 4 trios in the match. Power and Ebb from the low ground is able to pick up 2 elims in a row and then maintain his positioning through discipline and then close out in the 1v1, giving him a huge boost. And these clutch factors is what's going to lift these players up, particularly as we head into the grand final tomorrow. I mean, it has just been incredible watching the action so far and getting to see these guys really develop and continue on. And I just want to see what else happens going forward. We're going to throw it back into game with Jajaja and Monster. Gentlemen, take it away.
Thank you, Sundown. And yep, the action has been real here, Shayo. That was an exciting last game there. You saw for a second. Hey, Sundown, pretty face. We saw for a second there, you know, couple classic jump shotgun plays, kind of keeping that high ground, kept it real textbook. There was